Ready whenever you are.
Now, my talk today is water in the garden. Now, I know that we've had some pretty funny weather recently, and it's been hot and dry and wet and soggy, but this advice really is taking you through the whole year. Now, plants may survive without pruning. They may very well survive without, well, not for very long, but without feeding. But the one thing that is life and death to a plant is water. So what is water? It's, right, I'm not being able to move the slides on. Hold on, let's have a go. There we go.
Got it? Okay.
Now, most people actually get their water out of a tap, which seems a bit obvious. But anyway, what is water? It's tasteless, it's scentless, and it's the main constituent of streams, oceans, and fluids. We humans are 70% water, so really it is vital for life. But at the end of the day, it has no calories. Now, I missed out one word because at school we were always told, you know, this is tasteless, scentless, and colorless. Well, actually, that's not quite true. Because there is a very, very little blue hue in water. You can't see it in small amounts, but it appears in glaciers because you can see that that's not reflected from the sky. That's the important thing, but it's all to do with vibrations and pressure. But I'm not going to go into that because actually it would take too long. But water is precious. And climate change is really causing havoc in our lives. And we seem to be able to micromanage to a degree the plastics issue, but somehow climate change is too big to get our heads around. And even Mr. Trump is saying that climate change is fake news. Now let's just talk about water in your garden. The first thing to understand is your soil. Now in London, we're mainly clay soil, and it really is subject to extremes. So when it is wet, it gets very, very wet and you get sort of boggy. And when it's dry, it then dries out and you can see the earth cracking like that. And this really does present terrible problems in the garden because when it's waterlogged, the plants literally drown. Water fills all the air spaces between the soil particles and this prevents oxygen from getting to the roots. Basically, it's a wet, claggy mess and it stinks. When clay dries out, it is very difficult to re-wet. Water just finds all those cracks and off it goes, missing the plant roots completely. I have a secret remedy, but if you want to know, you'll have to see me after school. Mm-hmm. Now we worry about water. Some people have to pay for their water, but I'm saying, actually, why don't you just collect what comes out of the sky absolutely free? Because rainwater is extremely good for plants, all plants except seedlings, and I may return to that. But here is a water butt, and it's attached to the downpipe. And I think that every single house should automatically have one of these. There is a calculation of what is possible. If you multiply the annual rainfall, that's in millimeters, by the roof surface in meters square, and what you get is a number of liters of water, free from off your roof. So I'm not very good at sums, but here we are. 500 millimeters rain by 200 meters squares of roof. That's 100,000 liters of water. Now I find it very difficult looking at this amount of water and being able to measure it. So here we are. An average bathtub holds 200 liters of water. So 100,000 liters of harvested water equals 500 bathtubs. So think of that. Wow. Right, there is other water that you can use in the garden and it's called grey water, but it comes with a slight health warning. Now grey water has been used in the house once and then collected, but you should only use this water within 24 hours of collecting it, because after that bacteria can multiply rapidly, turning your grey water black. Now you can put grey water on any plants except the edible plants, because it might actually add more harmful bacteria in the soil rather than the regular water. And if it comes out of the washing machine, don't worry, because dilute soap residue won't cause too much of a problem, but with the ornamental plants. Because do remember that grandma or great-grandma probably chucked her washing up water over the roses, and that really effectively killed off all the aphids. But if you have a water softener in your system, don't use this water, as the salts can harm the plants. Now, calcium and magnesium are the minerals in the water that's responsible for making it hard. And believe me, London water is really very hard. So what the water softening units do, they exchange the calcium and magnesium for salt. And this leaves a trace of salt in the water, and salt and plants don't mix. So now, in the garden, we sort of think that we ought to just keep watering the little plants. But actually, the big plants we think can look after themselves. Now, there are things that you can do. If I was to put 2 millimeters of water around the base of a plant, as big as this, it would only percolate very, very few millimeters into the soil. But I need to keep that plant well hydrated, but I don't want to waste time getting the water to percolate right through the root system. So I find a quick way: get an old plastic bottle, cut the bottom off it, sink it as low as you can, take the top off, of course, sink it as low as you can into the soil beside a big plant. And then what you're doing is you're filling up with the water, and the water is getting right to where it is needed, and you're not wasting any water fiddle-faffing around in the top where there are no plant roots. Now, there's a similar thing that you can use for indoor plants, and these are water spikes that you can just screw onto a normal drinks bottle. And providing you take the label off, I mean, they don't look too bad at all. Now, assuming anybody is going on holiday, this is a method that you can use to keep your houseplants going. Or what you can do is, because you're not there thinking that they look beautiful, you're going to group them all together and perhaps fill up the sink and put a towel in the bottom, so the towel is now really quite wet, and put your plant pots on top of the damp towel. Or you could put the sink full of water and put the towel on the draining board, dingle the end of the towel in the now full sink, and put the plants on top. So the towel is constantly drawing up water from the sink, and by capillary action, you can actually keep those plants really well hydrated. And of course, if they're in a group like that, they'll help to protect themselves. So that's what you can do during holidays. Now, you may have seen some trees with some rather peculiar plastic bags around their feet and think, ooh, what's going on? This is what's called a tree gaiter. And it's a bag that's been very carefully manufactured to wrap around a tree, and it's got holes in the bottom, so they will fill that up with however much water is needed, and the water will very gently drip, 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 drip into the soil, which will keep that plant extremely well hydrated. Now, if you're in the market for growing vegetables, remember, green vegetables are in fact 80 to 95% water. So in hot weather, they are the first to wilt. I don't know who measures this sort of thing, but do you know that the average tomato plant transpires about 135 litres of water during a season? That's a lot of water. How many bathtubs is that? Well, I'll leave you to work that one out. Mm-hmm. Now, my secret weapon for new planting holes, I will use water storing gel. And it's just like granulated sugar. And you put a spoonful of this in the bottom of every planting hole, and you mix it through the soil. I then put some water in the bottom of the hole to kickstart the gel to start absorbing water. And then I put the plant in. And the secret is that it will hang on to water for long enough for the plant to get at it. I have another secret weapon I'm going to share. This would cost the outside world a fortune. Mm-hmm. It's country natural. Now, this is well rotted stable manure. It doesn't stink, I promise you. And it does 4 things. It suppresses weeds, it keeps the moisture in, it will remineralize the soil, and it will actually help the structure. So if we go back to our London clay soils, which really are very, very heavy going, you mix in this into clay and it will help to unbulk it. And if you've got very, very light sandy soils that hold on to no water at all, you pour water in the top and it just disappears. The organic matter in this will help to hang on to water. So it really is, it's an amazing product and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. And the gardens that I was associated with last year, they stood out because during the hot summer weather this year, the plants didn't seem to mind. They really were very well adjusted. So, I'll get back to that. So when do we water? When is the best time to water a garden and how? Well, to help control where the water goes, water when it's not windy, because the wind will carry it. Watering every day for 50 minutes at a time might be convenient for you, but it could be disastrous for the plants, because shallow watering, all that will do is it will bring the plant roots up to the surface, because they're out to look for water, where they'll quickly dry out in the next hot day. So it's really better to give a gardener a good soaking and less often. And a key to conserving water is to avoid any temptation to sprinkle. And that's what I mean. Gardens are best watered early in the morning to reduce evaporation. And if you've got any window boxes, it's a good idea to try and put some little feet or some spacers between the bottom of the pot or the window box and the concrete windowsill that it's sitting on, because the windowsill will absorb heat from the sun, and then the heat will then be radiated up through the pot, and the soil will very, very quickly dry out. So by introducing feet, you're just giving that little air break, which really does work wonders. And watering the lawn. You might like to know that if you water for 2 centimetres, this water will seep down to 15 centimetres. And if this sounds a bit technical, put yourself a jam jar out on the lawn while you're watering it, and you'll soon work out how much water is actually hitting the lawn. And of course, I really do, I ban these. They're better than nothing. But while that water is oscillating backwards and forwards, you're beautifully hydrating the air, and very, very little of it is of any use to what's underneath. So really that is, I've confiscated more than those, and most people have had hot dinners. Mm-hmm. Anyway, there we have a quick run through water. And I've given my top 10 watering tips. I'm not sure if it's going to end up in the chat box, but I think Barbara has actually taken control of that. So the watering tips will presumably come out at the same time as the other information. So that is it. I hope that's been helpful, but water really is very, very important to the garden, and it's precious, and this hopefully is my way of helping you to make the most of what you can get and get your hands on for nothing. Otherwise it costs a fortune.